First, what we want to do before our public aim here is we want to instantiate these classes. So it's going to be a paddle. We'll call it P1 for player 1. Goes new paddle. And then paddle P2 for player 2. It's a new paddle. And we can set now in our load content, which is down here, load content, we can start setting the starting variables, because what this does is when the game loads up, it's going to load it to these, load all our variables to these values. So we are going to, this is going to be the starting, we will do the starting texture. First let's just load the textures. I already imported these. Basically what you do is when you download the zip file, it'll have a player 1 paddle and a player 2 paddle PNG in there. You want to right click on the content, add an existing item, then you just navigate to your folder where they are and you can add them. And once in here you have access to them in your project. So we will assign the player 1 texture as content.load. It's going to be a texture 2D, and you can just use the name of the PNG on the right. So player 1 paddle, you don't need to put the PNG in there. And then we'll copy and paste this for the player 2. Switch the P1s to P2s and player 2 paddle. So it's going to load those textures and assign those to player 1 and player 2 textures. Then you want to come down to your draw. You need to add something here. You need to the begin and the end of when you're drawing. And the code for that is spritebatch.begin. So you will start that here. .begin. Let's begin drawing. And it's going to be sprite sort mode, back to front, and then a blend state, alpha blend. I'm not really going to get into this and break this down at all. Just need to know that, and then you're going to end the sprite batch. And we will do all our drawing in between beginning the draw and ending the draw. So right now all we have to do is call p1.draw and p2.draw. Oh yes, and sprite batch. Otherwise it won't know what to draw to. And that should be it. When we run this, basically just as a quick overview, in our draw function in our paddle class, it's going to draw the texture that we assigned to the position we assigned this color. And that's another thing we need to do. Before I forget, we need to set starting positions. So let's comment this real quick so we know what we're doing here. Assigning textures for our paddles. And down here we will assign starting positions for our paddles. And basically P1 position, so the paddle of our player 1, the position of our player 1 paddle. And the X position will equal 50. So we're going to have the player 1 paddle start 50 pixels off the left side of the screen. P1 position.y. This will be a little more lengthy. There's a command that you can run that it'll get the width or the height of your window. So, and that is graphics graphics device viewport, which is our window, height. We're going to divide that height by 2 to get us the center of the screen. Then we're going to subtract the height of our paddle and divide that by 2. So that should put our paddle in the dead center of the screen, left side of the screen, 50 pixels off the wall. And to set up our second paddle for player 2, this is going to be on the right side of the screen, so we want to go the graphics device viewport width, and we're just going to subtract that by 50 because we're going to get the full length of the screen and go 50 pixels off the wall. Then we're going to subtract the width of paddle 2. So we can just do this here. And wait a minute, what do we got here? P2 position X minus 50 minus P1 dot width. Alright, so player 2 position. It's a little confusing with these long lines. Graphics device, a viewport dot width minus 50. Then we want to subtract that from width. Okay, let's see if that works. Y equals graphics device viewport. The Y would be the height divided by 2 minus the height of our player 2 paddle divided by 2. Okay, so we have our textures assigned. We have our starting positions for our paddles. So it's going to take this in paddle 1, it's going to take the positions of each one and set it to our starting positions when we draw our paddles. And this should run successfully, no errors. And we have our paddles. The player 1 paddle is on the left, dead center of the screen, 50 pixels off from the left. And the player 2 paddles on the right. We have no controls go up and down, but this is just the start of drawing our paddles to the screen. In the next tutorial, I plan on setting up the controls so we can move our paddles up and down and set some restrictions so the paddles can't go off the screen on the top and the bottom. I hope this wasn't too lengthy. It is a little late, so apologize for some of the mistakes I had here, and I'll see you next time.